So for those of us who have maybe anxiety or panic who can't sleep, for those of us who have insomnia who can't sleep, for those of us with fibromyalgia where you wake up 6 times a night, like that is a form of torture.
Welcome to High on Self-Care. I'm your host, Stacey Zeal, yoga teacher, crystal lover, high-functioning stoner, and CEO of MaryZeal.com, a community for stoners who love cannabis and are looking to prioritize their self-care. On this podcast, we'll explore ways that meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and of course, all things weed can help you to elevate your self-care. We'll explore ways to truly value ourselves, use stillness for self-discovery, and cannabis to go higher on our journey. Think of me as your sister stoner who lovingly encourages you to prioritize yourself and reap the benefits of this magical plant. If you're ready to create a life that holds space for your most valuable asset, that's you, by the way, take a deep breath, light your J, and let's dive in. Hey, High on Self-Care listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I have such an awesome guest for y'all today, and I'm so excited for our conversation because I feel like she is going to gather our lives about stress, y'all. We are talking all things stress today, and stress is one of those things that, for me, it's like we talk about stress. We know that cannabis helps to manage stress and self-care helps to manage stress, but we really don't talk about what stress is. We don't really talk about how that shows up in our lives. We all say that we're stressed, but how stressed are we really? I think we're a lot more stressed than we let on, that we think we are. So I'm so excited for this guest today. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. So welcome to the podcast, Michelle. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I am Michele Johnson, also known as the Pain-Free PA. And I believe in stress reduction as a form of healing. You talk about what is stress? Girl, stress is that, oh my gosh, the tightening of my jaw when I first feel it, right? It's that daily headache, that tensing up in your shoulders. It's that my stomach is rumbling and I don't know what's going on. So there are so many effects on our body and our mind from stress. And I help those overworked professional women who are like, man, I'm at the end of my rope trying to keep my face fixed at work and not go off.
Ooh,
trying to not snap off on my family, right? Trying to keep it together because I'm not sleeping right. And I'm crying and I don't know why. So that's the woman that I help. We get so wrapped up in all the roles and goals sometimes that we forget about who we are and what we're meant to do walking this earth. And so I like to help people regain their power and get back to, hey, who am I really? Because when we do that, we really show up so much better in the world and we take care of people better. So that's who I am. I'm a physician assistant in family medicine. That's how I got started on this path. I noticed that when I would take care of people for their cough and cold and for their ailments, that most of the time they left my office crying about what was really going on underneath. Those stressors, those things that are really impacting their lives, trying to do all the things, being everything to everybody, and then trying to manage your childhood trauma, your memories, your nightmares, right? And so what had happened was, after being sick myself, after being a patient at the age of 23, being diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic pain, I was denied disability. I was crawling to the bathroom every day because my legs wouldn't work in the morning. I was having to take a nap at work and they had to accommodate me wearing footies because my feet were burned on the bottom. So fibromyalgia is one of those things that can attack any area of your body. A lot of us as Black women, as women of color, have lupus in our family, multiple sclerosis, all kinds of autoimmune disease. And really that illness is linked to stress, is exacerbated by stress. And about 77% of the reason why people come to the doctor is because of stress-related illness.
Wow. Yeah, that is definitely something when we chatted about that before, that 77% is so like, it's such an alarming stat, because it's like, we think we end up having to go to the doctor just because, that's what I'm supposed to do, or I have, whatever, stomach pains and stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff can come from stress. And I think, especially now that we are, like last year was very stressful, right? COVID, very stressful. But then now we have this new type of stress, I think, because now we're at least for me, I'll speak for myself, where I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, how do are we out of this pandemic? Clearly we're not. Like, there's still stuff happening, but there's still these, still events going on. Like we see all of these like music festivals and everything happening, right? And so you as a human, like you want to get out, right? I want to be able to just like go and have a good time and travel and do all the things. But at the same time, I'm scared and stressful. I got my parents stressing me out about, making sure. So it's like, it kind of feels like we're at a new kind of stress, right? It's like this reopening, reclosing type of stress. Can you relate, or have you,
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. So that statistic was before the pandemic. That statistic was from the National Stress Institute in 2016.
Wow. So we've been stressed.
Baby.
We've been stressed.
So when I tell you that right now, I work in telemedicine as a provider in family medicine. And a lot of what I deal with right now, and especially with my patients being located in a very high endemic area for COVID, there's so much anxiety. There's so much fear. You talk about being out of it, and of course we're not out of it, but our mentality is worn, right? We've been kind of worn down to the nub of our existence, because we're social beings. Two of the biggest qualities to manage stress well are having a resilient personality and having a community. And so what has changed for us is our way of doing community. And for some of us, our love language is touch, right? We need to be touched. And so when we don't have the normal outlets of being able to go out to eat, being able to hang out with our girlfriends, being able to do the normal things we would do to release, of course, the anxiety is like on a whole nother level. It affects every single area of our lives. Of course. So I was telling you that our organization had a 600% increase in prescribing anti-anxiety medications. And we all know that there's no one thing that's going to take away all the anxiety, right? We know that there's no one pill. We know that even like with our cannabis and all our self-care, everything we do, it's not going to be one thing we do, because we're going to need different tools at different times.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So to think that we would just magically know how to cope with this when all of our coping things have been taken away, of course we need help.
Yeah. I love that you said, we need different tools for different times. And because I so agree with that, right? Because on the podcast, we talk a lot about like, cannabis. We also talk about things like yoga and sound healing and energy healing. And, the reason that I try to bring on so many different experts like yourself that can talk about these different things is because of that reason, right? Because I think that something works for, everybody has something that works for them, right? Like I can tell you that yoga is the best thing since sliced bread, but if you don't like yoga, you don't have to do yoga, right? It's okay. You don't have to manage your stress that way. You don't have to use that as your self-care. I always try to tell people like, find something that you enjoy, right? Because self-care to me really is more so about the commitment that you make to yourself it's showing up for yourself. It's pouring into yourself intentionally, right? It's saying like, I'm going to take this 10 minutes and I'm going to do something for me, or I'm going to intentionally, you know, meditate every morning so that I can get my day started. And so I love that you say, you know, that it's different tools for different times, because I really do, you know, believe that. And I don't believe that there is something that is like a one size fits all for everybody. I don't believe that there's one thing that will just fix everything in life, you know? And so yeah, so how does, you know, how do we bring, I want to go back a little bit. I want to talk about more about how stress presents itself in our lives, because I think that, you know, when we were chatting right before we hit record, that there are so many things that stress, so many ways stress presents itself, right? And we all think like, oh yeah, I'm stressed, I have a lot going on, you know, but really like, how do we identify whether we are stressed? So maybe someone who thinks, oh no, I'm not really that stressed, because I think that that's also kind of where I fall too, where I have times where I'm like, I'm not really a stressed out person, right? Like I feel like I manage my stress very well. But then there are times when I'm like super stressed. So how do we identify those periods when we are like, you know, really stressed? Like what's going on within our body to let us know what's happening?
So I love that question. Okay. What I heard you say is, Michelle, how do I know if I'm stressed? Mm-hmm. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
Okay. So just like we're all different pieces to the puzzle, we all bring something unique to this world community. We all have our little different ways of identifying things within us. Okay. I lead a group for Black and women of color for stress management. It's a skills-based group where we learn different skills to relieve your stress, different tools for the toolbox. And one of the things that we always identify first is, where does it show up for you? Mm. Does it show up in your jaw, where you start to clench your teeth? You're noticing you're grinding. You have these dentist visits where they like, you wearing away at your teeth, right? Are you noticing that you're getting headaches? Are you more irritable? Like your family's telling you, you know, babe, you snapping off a little bit more. Like, are you okay? We feel like we're walking on eggshells. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you're not reflective, and this is why it's so important to prioritize your self-care, to prioritize you without the guilt. That's a big deal. Because if you don't start knowing yourself, you won't notice the early signs of your stress. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to be doing all the things for everybody and running here, running there, taking care of, you know, your job, taking care of your business, taking care of this person, that person, and you're not pouring into you and not even knowing what you need. You know, for some of us, we watch reality TV, right? And they got to show Married to Medicine. And I was like, man, these are some incredible women. This woman is a doctor. She's married to a doctor. You know, they have this great life, great home. And this woman said out of her mouth, I don't matter. Mm. The stakes are so high. I got kids. I don't matter. Mm. And what happens is we get so wrapped up in the distractions of what we're told we want, what we're told we're supposed to be. And a lot of us ain't doing that inner work to know who we really are and what we really want. Yeah. I know I'm gonna step on some toes because folks be talking about, you know, what my kids and but what line of reasoning told you that when you produce another human, that human is more important than what created it? Where that come from? Mm-hmm. The patriarchy. Come on, baby. come on back. Let's come on back. Mm-hmm. So what does stress look like? Stress looks like chronic headache. Stress looks like irritability. Stress looks like I can't sleep. I'm thinking all the time. Stress looks like I'm having anxiety and panic attacks. panic attack. Stress looks like I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed. I'm using rest as self-care, but really I'm getting too much damn rest.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Rest ain't always what you need.
Yeah.
Maybe it's mental rest because your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute. And maybe that mental rest will look like pouring some power back into you. Now, that was a word. I know. I'm sorry.
That was an absolute word. That was absolutely a word. And I think, it's so interesting how so many things in our lives come back to knowing self, come back to prioritizing self. And like, I mentioned, like, I feel like I'm not really, a super stressed out person. Right. And I think it's because I really pour into myself all the time, right? Like I can catch when I'm stressed. And because I journal every night, well, mostly every night, I meditate every morning. And all of that helps me to uncover when I'm stressed. Like if I'm journaling at the end, and I like to do my journaling at the end of the day so that I can check in with myself from that day. Like, how did I feel that day? What's going on? And sometimes I use my journaling to kind of like reflect and look back at things that I've been thinking about or childhood things that I want to unpack and work through. But a lot of it really is me just deep diving from the day. It's like, this has been on my mind all day, or this happened today. And, or I was feeling irritable today, or sometimes I've even written in my journal, like, I just feel extra chatty, but I don't have anything to say. Like, like I have so many thoughts going on, but no particular thought is sticking with me or resonating with me enough to want to actually put it on paper. And that's how I know I'm like, okay, maybe I have some stuff going on, right? I'm a little stressed because my mind is just going. And so I think that it's so important to, like you said, to really like tap into yourself and to know who you are and to prioritize yourself, because that is really how you know. And I think that, if the listeners, if this is your first time here, welcome to the podcast. But if you return here, you'll know my story about how I turned to cannabis was because I fell asleep driving. And because I had had insomnia for as long as I can remember. I just pushed through it, just thought sleep problems were normal. And then I eventually fell asleep driving. And for me, I think that, during that period, I was not pouring into myself as much as I could. I was so focused on my career and achieving and what do I want to do with my life and stuff like that, that I wasn't really focusing on me. I wasn't, catching the signs that, Stacey, you're tired all the time. And that's not normal, right? You don't have to be tired all the time. So I think it is so, so important to really re-emphasize that, like, when you listen to yourself, when you check in with yourself regularly, when you practice your self-care regularly, that's how you catch these things. That is so important. So, so important.
And can I just say, you are so not alone. I love that you shared that with us. And that resonates with me. As you saw in my book that I would fall asleep between the stop signs on my way to work. And that is so scary.
Yes. It's
so
such a scary feeling.
To hear you say that, it's like, oh my goodness, somebody else knows that fear.
That's how I felt when I read it in your book. I pulled it up from my notes. I was like, oh, wait a minute. We got to talk about this, because it was so scary. Even if it was just for like, for me, it was just for a few seconds, at least that's, if nothing happened particularly.
Well, we thought.
Right. But it felt like it was so long. But I think that with the fear came from really like losing control of my body. Like I didn't feel like, like my body went to sleep when it was not supposed to go to sleep. And that feeling was very, very scary.
And you could hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just as bad as drunk driving is exhausted driving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, man, the lack of sleep is a form of torture.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they use this in other countries to induce torture.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes. Keep you awake, put noises in your ears so you can't go to sleep. And what it does to your brain, to your body, because remember, we rejuvenate, we restore when we're asleep. So for those of us who have maybe anxiety or panic who can't sleep, for those of us who have insomnia who can't sleep, for those of us with fibromyalgia where you wake up 6 times a night, like that is a form of torture.
Mm. Mm.
So it is a priority to get your sleep together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And if you need some help on sleep, go back and listen to a couple episodes of the podcast, because I have some great sleep resources. Because that's because it's so near and dear to my heart, right? Like once I started to be able to get sleep consistently, I realized like, oh my gosh, I was missing out on so much. Being able to get sleep consistently and feeling how it feels to be on this side of it, where I get sleep consistently, where I do feel like, I wake up and my body is repaired, or feeling like my body has gotten to rest, right? I didn't know that was actually a thing, right? Like feeling like you wake up and you're actually not exhausted, feeling like you wake up and you are ready to, you're energized, right? Or you feel like you're repaired, you feel rejuvenated. I didn't know what that felt like for years. So now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm just like, oh, I need everybody to be able to get some sleep. I need everybody to be able to prioritize their sleep. And the way, and to this day, cannabis is what helps me sleep. Like, right. Like there have been times where I'm just like, oh, let me see if maybe, I'm over it. Maybe I'm past the insomnia thing and I won't smoke, or I won't try an edible or anything before bed. And then I just sit up and I'm just like, stressed out, and I'm in head like, Stacey, why did you do this? You need weed to sleep. Why don't you just go ahead and use what you use? This is your tool, right? This is what you use, and you just have to. I've had to accept that about myself, and that's one of the things I think. I wanted to talk about guilt a little bit, because I remember feeling a little guilty that I needed something to help me sleep. And so, how do we deal with that guilt around prioritizing our self-care, feeling like people need us, because everybody's always going to need us, right? But how do we manage that guilt?
I love this question as well, because I get this all the time. I think that this is a mindset shift. Okay. We have been taught, especially as women, that it is noble to put everyone before ourselves. That it is noble and honorable to be selfless. But what science has proven.
Come on, science. Come on, give us the real, give us the real science, because we throw it.
Is that the compounding of stress and not taking ourselves as a priority and utilizing self-care as a holistic practice in our lives, that we end up in dis-ease, that we are sicker, weaker, more tired.
I like tireder.
Right, tireder, more irritable, and we die quicker. So it's not serving us. And when you know better, you do better. Right? So we have to learn from that. We have to learn from the past. We have to learn from grandma and grandmama that the lives that they lived and the sickness, and look at grandmama, look at their life. Now there are some amazing things to emulate. Emulate the love, emulate the gifts of what you give. All I'm asking is that you pour into yourself first, because that's been proven to work. As you learn those things, like you said, you can catch stress sooner, you can catch it before, because what does stress do? It's sort of like a cancer. It grows and grows and grows onto the weakest link of you. So we talk about development of stomach ulcers that can then develop into stomach cancers, starting from stress. We talk about diabetes as your sugars. Hello, I know some of y'all out there got family histories of diabetes. Remember what stress does. Stress increases sugar in the bloodstream. It increases cholesterol in the bloodstream. It off balances thyroid hormone. Okay, Stress affects every single area of the body because the vagal stimulation, the vagal nerve that runs throughout all of us, if we stimulate that, we stimulate the opposite of the stress response. And so things like meditation, our yoga, our mindfulness practices, our progressive muscle relaxation, those things stimulate the opposite response. So how can you get guilted out about the science of your body? How can you get guilted out about doing what works and what serves? It's a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
There's some pattern recognition we need to do. And that's, in my course, I have this signature framework. It's called the 3R system. Okay. We release the stress first, then we repair the damage. After we've done that, we can relaunch your life. Part of that release is knowing what the hell is it for you? What happened at 5 or 6 years old that you learned that you need to go take boss you back and talk to them about?
Mm-hmm.
What we need to get rid of so we can move forward. And I am a fan of therapy. I'm a fan of coaching. I am a fan of accountability because listen, I get that some of us have had some hard, do we cuss?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We can curse on. Yeah. We can do all the things on this show.
We've had some hard shit happen. Feel me? A lot of us, especially as Black women, we have been oppressed on multiple different levels. We have in our DNA, we have slavery. We have the Holocaust from our Jewish sisters. We have things that have been carried out because, hello, stress is carried on our DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Absolutely. And so we have the opportunity now with our knowledge, now we know better, we can do better. Hello. So now that we know, we can change the trajectory of our DNA, we can change our legacy, we can change what we pass down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking about, guilt, let me lay this one on you. You're responsible for your life. You're responsible for what you pour into your kids. No one else is responsible. So if you're feeling guilty about your responsibility, then we got some mindset work to do. And that's just what it is. We all at different places in our journey. Where do you need to heal at? Where do you need to pour your power?
Yeah.
Now,
I love that.
For me, after we release, we do some repairing. I bring in my nutritionist. We talk about intuitive eating. I bring in my financial expert because some of us need to heal our relationship with money. I'm just saying, y'all, it's a lot involved in this self-care. It ain't just going to get our hair and nails done.
Right. Yeah. That's great, but you got to do work too.
Right, you got to
dig
do
in.
that.
Yeah.
You got to do all of that. So I just appreciate your platform of you saying, look, we're going to talk about all the things. Because different tools going to work for different people. We are all built a little bit differently and we approach the world a little bit differently. Have you heard of human design? Did we talk about this?
I've heard a little. So I've had, I'm interested in human design. I have seen more podcast episodes about human design, but I haven't tapped into it yet. So could you give us a little bit like what is human design and how that relates to self-care and stress management?
So it is a new tool for me. I am not an expert by any means. I did not go to any course. Life experience is good too, y'all.
Yeah.
But what I will say is a spiritualist, a friend of mine who is a doctor in internal medicine, physiatry, and has a dual degree from Harvard in spiritual medicine, recommended that I check out human design. So coming from her frame of reference, I say, well, heck yeah, I'm gonna go look this up. It combines astrology, I Ching, and neutrino science. And what it does is it takes your birthday, your birth time, and place of birth, and as a formula, spits back to you, hey, this is your type. This is your authority. This is how you walk through the world. And the freeing part of that, and why I included it in my 3 R's. So in my relaunch part, we do a human design reading, and I kind of give them, hey, this is your formula for what you walk through the world. And many of what happens is people are like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, I can't believe somebody been peeking in my bedroom. Really? Like, it's that intense? So, but what I use it for is the experiment that I use it for is just living life from that place. That, hey, this says that I'm one of those people that I don't go step by step by step. I'm one of them people that I'm gonna jump ahead. I'm gonna have to go back and repeat a couple of things because I missed something along the way. Right. That's how I'm made.
Yeah.
And those people who say do one thing at a time, that's what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a physician assistant, I'm a coach, because I got a lot of stuff I want to do.
See, I so feel that, because that is exactly me. And it's so funny. Like, for the longest time, I thought I was crazy because I was multi-passionate. Like, I have been a yoga teacher, a makeup artist, a promotional model, all the things, right? Marketing is something I've done for 10 years. And now I'm into cannabis, and so it's like, I've had to accept about myself that I have lots of other things, that I have a lot of interests. I love to explore my interests. And one of the things I love about me is that, like, I'm not afraid to explore my interests, but I also understand when that is no longer serving me, right? Like, being, when I was a makeup artist, I was like, oh, this was fun, but then it was chaos. And I was like, this is not me. This doesn't jive with who I am or what I want to do with my life. And so I stopped, right? Like, and I just stopped completely, didn't do it anymore. And I'm happy that I stopped, because it was no longer serving me. It was more stressful than it was, exciting and fun and lucrative and all that kind of stuff. So I so feel that, just being multi-passionate. And so I gotta tap into this human design, because I'm like, this is, you gave me the surface level, and I'm like, oh, this is some shit right here. This is good shit.
Listen, this what we're gonna do. I'm gonna send you, I'm gonna get your information. We're gonna do the link, and we're gonna do a reading together. Because it's like 54 pages. So I always tell people it can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you can get with somebody who already know it and can point you in the right direction, that would be good. But some people are like more, their energy, their aura is very focused. Mm-hmm. They have to be with just that one-on-one energy. I happen to have an energy that's very big. I attract people. We get people from all over, and that's how I walk through the world, through my relationships. Yeah. Some people are hermits. Do not pull them out of their house. And so it's a way to allow you to be you and work from there to your best success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love that it helps you to. I love that it helps you too. So I'm a big fan of anything that will help you to better understand yourself. Because I think that, like I was saying before, I thought it was crazy because I just wanted to do so many things, because our society tells us that, and we're in my upbringing, tells me what I'm supposed to do is go to college, get a degree, find a job that you like, stay there for the rest of your life, retire.
Hello.
Right.
And like, you're irresponsible. You're irresponsible if you don't. Like, I'm like, okay, so you're a physician assistant. You went to Duke. You spent all this, I ain't spend no money. I won a scholarship. But,
come on, scholarship,
they like,
yes.
Come on, baby. So they be like, why are you coaching?
Because I want to.
Because it changed my life. And that going to college and getting a good job, hello, that good job syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It can trap you from your freedom.
Yeah.
This is my freedom. I love this.
Yeah.
And the knowledge of being a physician assistant has carried incredible weight and incredible love to my clients, because guess what? I was doing it anyway at work.
Mm-hmm. Come on. How many times are we, is our purpose and all of that kind of, like, I think that everything that we end up doing, somehow leads us to our purpose that is in life, right? Like, I don't regret taking 2 years and being a makeup artist. I don't regret,
right.
Going to teach yoga, going to yoga teacher training and realizing like, I was in a studio teaching and I was teaching hot yoga and it was in Vegas when I was living. So it was like always hot, always sweaty, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't regret those things, right? Because those things taught me who I am. They taught me what I don't like. Just, I think, learning what you don't like is just as important as learning what you do like. And all of that stuff leads you to your purpose, right? So like I talk about yoga, all the time. I talk about, I use my story of being a makeup artist to really help people to understand that I dove into that because I was trying to escape from something. Not because I actually wanted to do it, not because it was aligned with who I was, not because I actually sat and tapped into myself to figure out if that's the path I wanted to go to. That's not what I did. I dove into it because I was like, oh, I hate my job. I really want to get a new, and I was under the impression that like, if I didn't like this job, that means it must be marketing, right? It must be, marketing that I hate. So I got to go to a completely different field.
Wow.
And so it's just all of these things that you're going through. I want our listeners to understand, like all of these things that you have going on in your life, whether you have multi-passionate, whether you have all these different interests or not, right? This is all a part of who you are. And it's pointing you towards your purpose, because you don't know how those things will appear, will be able to present itself once you get there, right? Like you're able to like tap into some of those experiences and help people to understand on the journey that they're going through, right? Because they're not at the same place that you are or that you were. So that's fantastic for sure.
One of the tools that I give clients that is really, really helpful with identifying some things is, they always talk about mirror work. And there's so many different ways that can look like, right? But one of the things that a lot of us as women, especially women of color, that we may not realize is we're carrying around some judgments about ourselves. And so one of the things that has been really helpful is I have people to look in the mirror. And when they talk to themselves, they say, I forgive myself for judging myself.
Yeah.
And just like you have journaling prompts, that's a mirror prompt for you. For me, it was forgive myself for judging myself about the way that I handled money.
Yeah.
Forgive myself for judging myself about being sick and feeling guilty that I couldn't help my son with his homework sometimes. When you talk about purpose, so often our purpose changes. In that moment, my purpose may have been to be a patient so I can know what patients feel like.
Yeah.
And it was not temporary. It's a 20-year battle. I still have fibromyalgia. It doesn't go away. My mom would say, remember, baby, you can always pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and start all over again. So sometimes when you thought something was your purpose and it's no longer serving you, just remember, you can start over. You can give yourself 1,000 second chances, like Lisa Nichols say. Like, this is yours to live. This is yours to own. And so whether you were a ballet dancer, then a yoga teacher, and then you were in marketing, I feel you. I worked 15 jobs. I was in customer service. I worked for State Farm. I worked for Ameritech. Went back to school, became an ophthalmic technician. And them doctors and patients was like, oh no, you need to go back to school. You need to be a doctor. Ain't nobody going back to school for 8 years. I became a PA.
Right. You're like, I'm good. I'm good on that.
And like, for real, the experiences that I had going back to school, I got to go to China. I got to go to Cuba. I got to see holistic medicine. The practice of getting to the heart, of getting to the soul of you. These people could touch you and tell you hot. There's some fire burning in you.
That's dope.
So far beyond what I could learn in Western medicine. And so to combine those things gives me a unique perspective from my clients. That's what it's all about. Helping others through what you learn about you.
Yeah.
And letting them be authentically them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Because that's like, I find that, with this podcast, that it helps me to explore myself. And then when I explore myself and can give that to other people, it helps them, right? And so that's what I honestly think that that's really what this life is about, right? It's about learning. It's about learning about yourself and sharing those things with others, right? And letting them take from it what they need to in that moment, right? Like not trying to force healing on anybody or force,
Right.
anybody to do one particular thing, right? It's about giving people the knowledge, giving people the information, and having them take a nugget that they can apply to themselves when they're ready. Because there are so many things, right, that I'll read a book or listen to a book or listen to a podcast, and one thing will resonate with me, and then a little bit later I listen to it again and something completely different resonates with me. And so that's where so that's why right, so that's why I'm so happy that you're sharing your story and that you have been able to kind of take all of the things that have happened in your life and bring them into a space that can actually help and heal people. And that is just something that I think is fantastic. And so I would love to kind of talk about, you talked about like you talked about how you kind of take us through your framework of, helping people to deal with stress. So I wonder, like, how do we prioritize self-care? Because I think that that's one of the things, like, we're talking about mindset shifts and stuff like that. Like, what can we do today, or what's something that we can leave our listeners with, today that they can do to then take and help them to better prioritize themselves, whether that's releasing the guilt, like we talked about before, or, just making the time and not being overly, booking yourself overly too much, right? Like, what are some things that we can do to help us in this area?
Well, some people are really good at being schedulers and planners. And so they are the people that I would say to, hey, put on your damn calendar. This is going to be my time, right?
That is me.
You have something every day that you put on your calendar. Put that on your calendar. This is my self-care time. And remember that self-care can mean different things, right? Self-care can be my time to do my yoga and my reflection. I do sky breathing, which is a big deal for me, to get into my body and out of my head. I do yoga as well every single day if I can, if my body don't hurt, right? So there are different things that work at different times. So I am a fluid person. I am not as good with a schedule. So what I have to do is I still have to schedule it, hello? But instead of making a time every day in the morning at 8:00, I will pick out pockets of time at different times of the day. Like I make sure that I have a nap every day.
Love that.
Because I need a nap. Mm-hmm. I'm at my best if y'all let me get an hour.
Yes, that's what it's about. Being able to show up your best, like I think one of the things that kind of, when you were saying that about showing up and pouring into yourself, is making me think about all the stuff that's happening with the Olympics. And when this episode comes out, I think the Olympics will probably be over. But, we saw this with, Simone Biles. We saw this with Naomi Osaka. We saw this with, so many other of our beautiful Black athletes that are deciding, especially particularly Black women that are deciding, like, I can't show up today, and that's okay, right? I can't show up today, and you're not going to make me show up. So I love that this kind of like next generation of Black women are just saying, like, you know what, if I can't show up, I'm just not going to. And I love that. I just love that.
And what are the consequences of showing up when you can? What are the consequences? Let's talk about what's at stake. What's at stake if you don't prioritize healthcare, your self-care? Because self-care is the new healthcare, hello? Mm-hmm. But if you don't prioritize it, what happens, right? I just talked to a woman say, I found out that my husband's leaving. They were trying so hard to keep doing the thing that nobody took a step back to take care of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And now it's broken. It's over. He's leaving. Now that you want to work on it. Mm. Same thing happens in our health. Guys, I was going like 20 going north. I was doing oh my goodness, I was doing so much work. And my body said, I'm going to lose 45 pounds in 5 months. Mm. I'm gonna make it so you can't eat. You're throwing up every day. I had to stop. I could not work, could not do anything. When my knees would touch at night, my husband said I cried out in my sleep.
Mm.
Your body will tell you things. So the consequences of not prioritizing your self-care, when you think about that, what's your choice?
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to make sure that that's in your schedule. If it's 3 times a week at first, fine. But this is your intention. You're on the way to building something. If it's 10 minutes on those 3 times a week, you're going to see how good that feels and you're going to want more. But start.
Yes. Have to start.
And get an accountability, but get somebody that's going to, do this with you.
Yeah.
Because we can fall back into old patterns so easily. But when you have a like-minded tribe, when I tell you, I went on this retreat this weekend. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up too much time.
No,
I went on this retreat.
We got as much time as we need. Go for it.
Girl. This friend of mine, she's a coach, and she asked me to speak at this retreat. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go speak at the retreat. I've been at 2 retreats this month, but okay, another retreat, right? Not thinking about self-care, not thinking about release, but thinking about what I have to do. When I tell you, this woman rented a mansion for 18 Black women. There was no judgments, no arguments, no holier than thou. All of us let our hair down. We danced. We laughed so much we cried.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
I mean, cried. I was laughing so hard I could not talk. And sometimes we need each other in that way. And I left those women in power with saying, hey, I'm going to hold you to what you said you wanted to do. You need that. Don't forget about your sister friends. Don't forget about your good girlfriends. They hold you accountable. Sometimes better than the coach can because they know you. So take that nugget.
Yes, that was definitely a nugget. That was an amazing nugget because I think it is so important. Like having community is so important. And there's an episode about how to make friends. If you are someone who don't have a squad, you don't have a bunch of girlfriends you can kind of go to and talk to, go back and listen to that episode. I think it was 20 something. And so, and we'll link to it in the show notes as well. Cause that's so important, right? And even having someone cause there are times when, so me and my partner, we live together, and there are times when I'm just plowing away at work or something. And he's like, you need to just step away. Take a break, right? And same, I used to do the same for him. You need to take a break, have something to eat, right? Or, because you need people because sometimes you get so focused on what you're doing, you get so focused on the goal and the vision and the destination that you don't realize that in order for you to get to that destination, you have to be full, right? You have to fill into yourself every day in order to get there. Because what's the point? My vision for my life, at the moment, and I know it's going to change eventually, soon, but I just want to travel the world and just be able to go around the world. I want to smoke weed. I want to travel the world and just see life and experience life, right? And the way that I'm doing that is, growing this podcast, growing my business and stuff like that, so that I can finally leave corporate and just go, right? And so that's my vision. But the thing is, if I run myself into the ground, I can't get there. I have my podcast, I have my freelance business, and I have work where I work in a high stress tech environment, and we are getting real close to Cyber Monday, Black Friday. And then the stress is coming, right? The stress is already coming. And so, but in order for me to get to the vision, in order for it to come true in a way that I want, right? Because I don't want my vision to come true and me be exhausted, right? I don't want to be traveling the world and be exhausted, right? I don't want to be, I don't want that. I want to be able to travel the world with ease and just have a great experience and just relax, right? And so I have to make sure I pour into myself. So I can't work 12 hours a day, right? I can't go. There have been so many times when I will, maybe not get something done in the morning that I want for my side hustle, to start working for, 8 hours, have a quick snack and then jump back into work. But it's like, that's not sustainable. I cannot get to my vision if I don't make it to my vision, right? I have to make sure that I can make it.
And sis, is it okay if I coach you on something?
Yes, go for it.
So don't beat yourself up about that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that part too.
Yeah.
There's some days gonna be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some days we have that motor.
Yeah.
And bless it. Let it go on about this business and get back to your program. Because some of us will beat ourselves up about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't do it right. What's right today may not even be the right thing tomorrow. That retreat and dancing, I didn't do no yoga on the retreat, y'all. I didn't do my normal breathe work. But boy, I tell you, that was still self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm tired from it, my knees swole. But now I can resume what I normally would do to feel into me.
Yeah.
And you just keep going. It's okay.
Yeah. I love that. You do have to release that guilt, because I do, like, sometimes I will beat myself up. I'm like, oh, didn't meditate today. I'm telling all these people to make sure they meditate, and I didn't even make sure I made time for my meditation today, because that's like, and I think that's kind of like the circularness of being a healer, right? Like, and I'm sure you can relate, like when you're telling people how to heal. Yes.
I'm speaking to you, speaking to me. Like, don't beat yourself up about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love that. And I could literally we could talk about this all day, because, like, I feel like, we have so many directions that this can go in, but I want to make sure that we stay focused and, and really, like, because we've given people so much information. I want to talk about your book. Tell me about the book. Tell me what was your inspiration for writing the book, and give us a little bit about what our listeners could find in it when they go get the book.
Well, guys, interestingly, I actually didn't intend to write a book. When I was at Duke, one of my classmates, I tell a lot of stories from my life. And I was telling her about China. I was telling her about the time I was 7 years old and watched a man burn to death waiting for an ambulance in the neighborhood that I lived in, because they didn't come. The police and the ambulance, they didn't come. Right. And she said, you should write a book. And I kind of laughed at her, And interestingly, 7 or 8 years later, I went to Lisa Nichols' conference, Speaking Right, and we were talking about just that everyone who is a coach or a speaker should have a business card, which is your book. And I had before that started getting these nudgings, these feelings like, I need to write that down. I need to write that down. And it will wake me up in the middle of the night where I will be writing. Mm-hmm. I'm not a journaler. I journal sometimes. Mm-hmm. Just, full disclosure, I'm not a write person. I can write. I used to edit the English papers for my English teacher in school, y'all. But that's not my thing. This was waking me up at night. Mm. You need to tell them this. This will help somebody. This story will really be helpful. This will resonate with somebody. And the first morph of it was like me throwing up about my life. And what ended up happening was, no, you need to change this to what will be impactful for their life. And so it became a how to live a full life despite chronic pain. Everything that happened for me in my life happened for me because of fibromyalgia. Because of the pain and the trauma and the experience in my body. Yeah, so it became like a how to live your full life despite chronic pain. It became because everything that happened for me happened after fibromyalgia. It was the working against that friction, that thing, whatever that thing is in your life that's making you move. Like, hey, I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to be that person like I saw on the internet. Like, everybody was so depressing on the internet. All the little groups that's supposed to help you with your illness Like, man, it made you want to go like, oh my God, I'm gonna go help Stacy. She running out of money. She gonna die. Like, it was so depressing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sounds depressing.
So I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be that person. I was 23. Mama said, get up. You know, you can always start over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what inspired the book. It wouldn't let me sleep.
I love that. And I think that one of the things, you know, we should all take away from that is when you're getting these nudges, listen to them, you know, because so often we think that we don't have a story or we don't have something to share, or we think that something that happened to us is, you know, just normal, right? And people just deal with it, and our story can't help someone. But what I've realized definitely doing the podcast and, you know, definitely starting to share my story about why I even turned to cannabis in the first place, you know, it helps so many people. And, you know, like, and it's not like, you know, I didn't invent cannabis. Weed has been around since the beginning of time, right? It has been around longer than we have. But, you know, me being able to share my story with my people in my circle, and then that starting to grow, right? That my circle starts to grow now with the podcast and with the blog and stuff like that. So it's, you know, even if you think that you don't have a story, listen to those nudges. What is something that you can't stop thinking about? You know, and I'll even give you something I don't even think I've ever told anybody this. Like, I remember, so for the longest time, before I even started this podcast, I'm in the car and I'm talking out loud, like sharing things that I think are important, but I'm only sharing them with myself, right? I'm sharing them because that was my safety zone in my car. I could just sit and, you know, I could talk and I could say like, oh, well, this is something I've been thinking about and it's really interesting. Or this is something that I learned. And, you know, and I didn't realize until I started my podcast that those were nudges. That was me, you know, the universe kind of putting messages within me and giving me the nudge that I need to share this with people. And those times that I don't even, you know, I don't beat myself up. Like we were talking before, I don't beat myself up because I was getting myself ready to get here, right? I couldn't get here any faster than life had allowed me, right? So there are nudges that are in your life, right, that are telling you that you either have something to share, whether that's writing or audible. You know, for me, I'm more of an audio person, right? Like I tried a blog, writing blog posts took forever for me because I just not naturally a writer. But you know, like yeah, right. I'm just not naturally a writer. So I'd rather talk and you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I would love for people to kind of just take away, like, find your nudge, right? What is nudging you? What is something calling you to do? And then also thinking about that within your life, like what is your physical body telling you about your stress, right? Like about your stress level. Like, you know, we get these nudges. I think that we just don't slow down enough to really like listen to them and to tap into them. And so this has been just such an awesome conversation. I just love this conversation. So can you please let our listeners know how they can work with you, how they can, you know, connect with you online, and where we can find the book?
Girl, yes. So the book is on Amazon. It's called Pain Free: How to Live a Full Life Despite Chronic Pain. I am on Facebook at The Pain Free PA and on Instagram, The Pain Free PA. My Gmail is thepainfreepa@gmail.com. And guys, working with me, I'm one of those people that I feel like whatever the need is, we can find a way. I may have a resource that you need. I'm not all about you need to work with me. It's not always a good fit. I'm about what do you need to get to your next.
So this was such a great conversation, Michelle. I love talking to you. We talked about so many things, and I want everyone to make sure that you head to the show notes at maryzeal.com/33. And it's also going to be linked in the episode notes below, because there we're going to link to her book. We're going to link to the course. We're going to link to all the things, all the ways that you can get in touch with the Pain Free PA. And I really honestly think, you know, this is such a great topic because, like, you know, like stress is just something that we always talk about, but we never dig in deep. And I feel like today we just scratched the surface. So I definitely want y'all to make sure y'all check out the book, check out the course, because we really, you know, if you have some of the symptoms that we were talking about earlier today, that are just consistently coming up in your life, like really, like, make sure you get in touch with the Pain Free PA so that y'all can figure out how to deal with the stress. And so you don't end up being those 77% of the people who go to the doctor because of stress. but we can just start to live our best lives. So thank you so much, Michele. Again, this was such a great conversation. I just can't wait for our listeners to dig into this.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you got a nugget of information or inspiration from this episode, here are 5 ways you can support the podcast. You can buy me a coffee at buymethatcoffee.com/high-on-self-care to send your token of appreciation. You can shop Mary Zeal's favorite things. This is a list of products that we love and have actually tried over at maryzeal.com, and some of these products contain affiliate links that give us a kickback when you shop their site at no cost to you. You can leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. If you are listening on the web, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast app of choice. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the places. 4th, you can share the podcast with 3 friends that you think will benefit from all the nuggets that we drop. And lastly, you can join my email list to get episodes sent to you weekly and learn about all the fun new things we have coming up on maryzeal.com and the podcast. All the links are in the description. And I will catch you on the next episode.